Welcome to the Cowboy Up podcast, where talk is all about the West. This episode is brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and produced by Cowboy Spirit USA. David Rychener started singing and playing country, bluegrass, and gospel music at an early age, and he kept playing throughout a career spent in the health industry. Now retired, David performs every week at White Stallion Ranch and many other Tucson venues, and even hosts his own podcast, Cowboy at Heart. Here with Russell and Allen to perform a few songs and tell a few stories is David Rychener.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good.
Hey, we're going to start a little different this morning. We're going to start with a song by Dave Rychener on a kind of famous guitar. So, Dave, play.
It's a mirage you see, not what it appears to be. It's not water. All day I've faced a barren waste without the taste of water, cool water. Old Dan and I, the roads burn dry and souls that cry for water, cool, clear water. Keep a-moving, Dan, don't you listen to the band. A devil, not a man, spreads the burning sand with water. Dan, can't you see that big green tree? Water's running free, waiting there for me and you. Water, cool, clear water. Nights are cool and I'm a fool. Each star's a pool of water, cool water. And way up there you'll hear our prayer. Show us where there's water, cool, clear water. Keep a-moving, Dan, don't you listen to him, Dan. A devil, not a man, spreads the burning sand with water. Oh, Dan, can't you see that big green tree? Water's running free, waiting here for me and you. Water, cool, clear water, cool, clear water.
Thank you. And I wanted to start with that because I wanted to hear the music from that guitar. Now, talk to us a little bit about your guitar.
Thank you, Alan. And hello, folks. My voice is always a little bit lower in the morning. I probably picked a song that was a little too high for my voice at this time in the morning, but anyhow, I made it through there. Well, I started, Alan, with that song, which is a Sons of the Pioneers song, actually written right here in Tucson, Arizona, by one of the original founders of the Sons of the Pioneers, who was Bob Nolan, and he grew up here in Tucson. And some would say that he was a loner, and he wrote these songs. The story is that he'd take his pickup truck out in the desert in the middle of summer, put a bathtub on the back of his pickup truck, fill it with water, sit in the desert and write this music. But the other part that I want to relate to this song, I started with this song because I had the good fortune recently of purchasing a guitar that I'm playing right here with you all today that is very meaningful to me. Tim Spencer was one of the original founders of the Sons of the Pioneers, along with Bob Nolan, who I just talked about, and Roy Rogers. And they formed the Sons of the Pioneers in 1933. And Tim Spencer actually died in 1974, but I got to be friends with his son, Hal Spencer. And Hal just died a couple of years ago up in Oregon. But before he died, I went up to see him the month before he died. And one of the last things he said to me, he said, "David, I would love it if you could buy my dad's guitar, Tim Spencer's guitar." And I was so humbled and so honored that he would suggest that. And I was able to do that. So this guitar I'm playing here today is Tim Spencer's 1946 Martin D18. And I'm sure that Cool Water has been played many times on this guitar. So,
well, I'm tickled to be here and look at it. I can't describe it over the air so anybody could see it, but that's fun to hear the history of that guitar.
Yeah,
and that's a beautiful instrument.
Well, I will say that I think what Hal told me is after his dad died in 74, this guitar sat in the closet from 74 till I bought it a few months ago. So that's 50 years almost that it sat in a closet. And before that, Tim Spencer's voice had started to give out a little bit in 49, so he just mainly managed the Pioneers. So this guitar is in great shape for a 1946 Martin.
It looks brand new. I mean, has anybody renovated it, or it's just as is?
No, it's just kind of as is.
Wow.
So it was well taken care of.
Did you have to mortgage the Aravaipa Ranch?
Well, it's interesting. We had a large discussion about what something like this would be worth, and so we sent off to Nashville to Gruden Guitars, who are known as the best guitar appraisers in the world, and they appraised it. I said I would pay whatever they appraised it at, and that's what I did. So yeah, it cost.
You don't want to drop it and break it.
No, I don't.
So with that guitar with no provenance, without Tim Spencer,
right?
Would that be a valuable guitar just as a standalone because of its age and being a Martin?
Yeah. They actually they probably added about another third of the value to the guitar because of being Tim Spencer's guitar.
Okay.
Now Roy Rogers, because he was more popular than Tim Spencer.
He was the name, yeah.
He was the name. He had a guitar, made by Martin, a little bit older than this, but it wasn't probably worth a lot more than this. But because of whose it was, it sold at Christie's auctions for, I think, $675,000.
Holy
Now, that's
Moses.
a lot more than I paid for it.
I'm guessing.
Anyhow, I just wanted to share that story with you.
Well, I noticed you didn't bang it around in the pickup much.
So it's interesting. Roy Rogers' guitar, did it sell? Was it in the museum? And then when they closed the museum, was it out of there, or was it a separate?
Question. I think it sold. It might have been in the museum at one point, but it actually sold before they got rid of the Roy's museum. So,
okay.
His last museum was in, what's the name? We used to be in Apple Valley, but then they moved it to Branson, Missouri.
Because I thought it was interesting. His will said that when the museum no longer pays for itself, time to shut it down and disperse it.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's a
good way to do it.
That's a clear, thinking, humble person.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I spent an evening once with Monty Montana. I mentioned it on the podcast before, and they were neighbors of Roy and Dale. And, he just, and Monty was a pretty interesting and accomplished guy in his own right, but they revered Roy and Dale. They just revered him. And it's interesting because we had somebody tell some of the story, Dale Evans, and their life was sure no Hollywood dream come true. They had tough times.
They had a child or two that died in young ages. And I think all but one of their children were adopted.
Yeah.
And but they were great. They were great people. My hero's at 5 years old. My hero was Roy Rogers, and I'm just living out my childhood dream of learning this Western music in my little ranch and being like Roy Rogers.
Stupid question,
yes.
But on the way out here today, you were talking about your little ranch and how much you love it and how good it is out there and all that. Do you go up once in a while up in the hills and play for yourself and just enjoy up there? Is that something you would do?
Well, I usually don't take my guitar when I get on my horse and go up into the hills.
It wouldn't take this one.
Yeah.
But I love, I love just getting on my horse and riding up in the mountains by myself. And it may not be the safest thing in the world to do, but so far I'm still alive. And but just the peace of being up there in the mountains by myself. In fact, maybe I should play it for you. I wrote a song. I took an old gospel song called In the Garden, and I changed the words to In the Mountains. And I just wrote that song based on my experience of being in the mountains on my horse by myself.
I think we better hear it.
I hadn't planned on doing that for you today, but I guess there's...
Well, as you prep, we've kind of gone out of order, which is good. What do we... But I just want to introduce you. You've been on before, but David Rychener has lived in Tucson over 20 years, but he grew up on a farm in northwest Ohio. Dave's... You don't hear a lot of this anymore. Oldest of 10 children.
Yeah.
Started, I bet you helped raise a bunch of them. He started playing and singing gospel, country, bluegrass, all at an early age. And then last year, because it's not just all about guitars and music, you retired from your 40-year career of providing whole health education at various universities, and I think maybe importantly for the VA. You do weekly performances around Tucson with the music, but you're still, I think, providing consulting on whole health. Is that true?
That is, that's tailored off a little bit over the last year, but I'm still doing a little bit of that too. Yes.
And of course, you have a place in, we had a podcast person. I said, what's the place you haven't heard of that everybody should see in Arizona? He said Aravaipa Canyon.
Is that right?
And, I would agree. I haven't been to a lot of places in Arizona that I should have. But Aravaipa is that amazing collection of saguaro cactus and fruit trees and avocado trees and live water. And it's just only in Arizona. And you have a little ranch there, a cattle ranch, but you also have a place people can rent and bring groups and be right there on the river.
Yeah.
As long as it's not flooding. And
it's a good point because you can't get to my ranch.
No, that's why because I know you've been through that. And of course, you're here every Saturday at White Stallion. Also going to start, or you're the host of a relatively new podcast. Also, I think you're a recipient of Stan Houston, our producer's relentless drive to get podcasts going. He's the whole genesis of ours, and now yours, Cowboy at Heart. And you're going to be doing that podcast, Cowboy at Heart, here at the ranch. And I'll just quote, I said this last time you were on, but I just love it. You were out here hired by somebody else years ago.
Yeah.
And you were playing music on the patio. My brother calls me over, and he's a very plain-spoken person. And he says, I hate this music, but I like it when Dave sings it.
Oh.
And he says, I love it. Go talk to him and see if he'll come back here every week. And it started then. You stayed longer. Your wife we knew already.
Yeah.
And that was how it started because my brother hates country music and loved it when you did it. And so that's how it all, and that's an absolutely true quote. So anyway.
And I will say that that was 11 years ago, and it was my first gig. It was my first.
No
that's
kidding.
How I got started was here, Russell.
No kidding.
That was I had done just here and there maybe for a few months, but I didn't have a regular gig at all. And Bill Gantz, who you're mentioning,
who just retired. He just retired. Wrote us I'm riding off with my guitar on vacation.
Exactly. He was my mentor. He was my guitar teacher. And one day he couldn't make it here. And he said, could you fill in for me? And that's how it all started. That's how my singing career started, was here.
Well, terrific. Well, your song.
Yeah, I just want to say one more word about the podcast before I do this song that I'm doing. I'm just starting it, Russell. I think there's only 1 or 2 episodes up. And what I'm doing is taking the second half of my Saturday night show here and just recording that just straight live. And it's, for me, that second half show is just very interactive with the audience. And, I have fewer people that are there, and I can just kind of find out from them what kind of music they want to hear. And we start talking. That brings up a song, just like we started talking here. It's going to bring up a song. So that's what that podcast is all about. It's a new one. So,
super.
So as you mentioned there, I grew up on gospel music. And this song I do for you now, I took an old gospel song based on my experience of riding up in the mountains and made it into a cowboy song. So the song's entitled In the Mountains. I come to these mountains desert air, and the silence I hear falling on my ear. I know my God is very near, and He rides with me, right beside me, just as if we're old friends. And the peace of mind on this trail I find, I pray may never end. As we ride on in silence, I see all this beauty that surrounds me. The white-tailed deer, a hawk soaring near, as free as He created them to be. And He rides with me, right beside me, just as if we're old friends. And the peace of mind on this trail I find, I pray may never end. I'd stay in these mountains with Him, though the night around us be falling. But He bids me go to the world below, to know and follow my calling. And still He rides with me, right beside me, just as if we're old friends. And the peace of mind on this trail I find, I pray may never end.
Well, that was fine. Hey, when, your musical career kind of started here at White Stallion Ranch, I would say, and it continues on, where do you see it going from here?
Well, I just enjoy being up and performing with people, whether it's 3 people or 200 people. And I'm playing currently 3 nights a week in the Tucson area. And my 4th night, I actually practice with a gospel bluegrass band. We play every once in a while. And so I'm 4 nights a week. I'm busy doing music. And what I'm hoping, I keep telling myself, I want to keep my health so that I can play music for the next at least 10 years. So it's one of my goals is to keep myself healthy, keep my throat, be able to stand up. I love to stand up and sing. And right now, some nights I'm standing up for 3 hours and singing, and that takes some energy. So I want to keep my health in order to keep doing this as long as I can. I may, who knows, something might happen tomorrow, but my dream is to keep doing it for at least 10 years.
Well, whole health is your expertise. We've got to take a break, and then we'll be right back. Here at White Stallion Ranch, we say girls and horses, they're just a match. And we see it every day. In fact, I think if it weren't for the females' love for horses, I'm not sure dude ranching would still be thriving. It just is a trend we keep on seeing, women coming together to enjoy the dude ranch, and horses being that central experience. They come without their husbands if they have them, or they're just coming together, and they enjoy the variety of activities, but also feeling safe and comfortable, and just not having to worry about much. Rooms, meals, activities, and of course, all that horseback riding is the central experience that brings them all together. www.whitestallion.com is where you find out a lot more, the whole website. And if you'd rather talk to somebody, we have great people answering the phone at 888-977-2624 or whitestallion.com. So, Dave, you said you do other nights, and people are in Tucson listening. Where can they be groupies and follow you around?
Sure. Well, first of all, I have a website too called davidrychener.com, and my last name is spelled Rychener, and people can always go there, davidrychener.com, and Rychener. Yeah. And people can always go there and find my schedule because it's sometimes hard for me to remember my schedule. But Wednesday nights, I split my time. I'm first and third Wednesdays. I'm at a place called Mi Tierra, Mexican restaurant up in Catalina.
Yeah, good place.
Really good place. It's been family business for a long time. And then the second and fourth Wednesdays, I'm just down the road at a place called Catalina Craft Pizza, which is right next to the Tractor Supply up there. And then on Friday nights, I'm primarily at a great steakhouse here in Tucson called Highfalutin, right on Oracle Road.
Laura and I, that is a knockout home run restaurant.
You bet.
We love the aesthetics, the look, the feel, the food, service. Hats off to Highfalutin. Anyway.
I'm so grateful to Mo that he actually had a band there, and then COVID hit, and the band didn't want to play there anymore, and he asked me if I would. So I've been doing that for about 3 years, and it looks like I'm be there for a while.
A regular. Cool.
But my music fits perfectly with the ambience of Mo's restaurant there, the Highfalutin. And then there's one Friday night when I'm up at a place called the Views Restaurant in Sun City, which is the Gulf community in Oro Valley. And then, of course, Saturday nights, I'm here almost every Saturday night of my life at the White Stallion.
Just right.
So those are the places people can generally come.
Do you do some? Did you say you do some playing and practicing with some bluegrass?
Yeah, there's actually a great group of guys that two of them have been together for over 50 years. And one of our guitar player is 90 years old. And the guy who leads the band, I think, is 84. And we have a great time. We have 6 members. It's a bluegrass gospel band, so we play a lot of churches and so on. But we enjoy practicing every Monday night. Just getting together and practicing is a lot of fun.
Do you do any solo bluegrass?
I do bluegrass songs. It's hard to do bluegrass because bluegrass is so fiddle, banjo oriented with great harmonies, but I do some of the songs, like Rocky Top Tennessee and
I think we better hear that.
Oh, how about we save that for another time?
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that, Alan, is because that one's going to take. My voice isn't quite up to it this time in the morning for that song. So
who are some of you were a fan of Roy Rogers? Who else do you really like to play?
The one person that comes to mind is Marty Robbins. I love Marty Robbins, especially his Western music, but also his other music. He's someone I love to play. I'm actually preparing to do just a whole show, 1-hour show of Johnny Cash. So
wow.
I love doing Johnny Cash. Someone asked me if I could do an hour show, and I'm going to do that in July of just Johnny Cash. Willie Nelson had his 90th birthday this weekend.
Wow.
And someone asked me if I could focus on that. So I sat down. I do 16 songs that Willie Nelson did.
20 years ago, who would have predicted Willie Nelson to be alive at 90?
Exactly.
That is not a prediction that anybody feels secure with.
People assumed he would have died early for all his use of substances and so on. But he's still with us, and he's quite an inspiration to me to keep going. So those are some of my favorite. Of course, I love George Jones, an old country singer, but Sons of the Pioneers have always been a staple for me. Roy Rogers and Gene Autry, of course, and So.
You know what? The other night, and you'll remember this, I was sitting there with Reagan, and she was torturing you with dancing. And
that doesn't torture me. I love that.
And there was a little girl that appeared to be 10, and she was asking you for songs that no 10-year-old in America would.
Yeah.
She knew, and some you knew but couldn't do.
Right.
I mean, these were outlying songs for a 10-year-old.
She was, and speaking of Marty Robbins, she was asking me for
Yeah.
Marty Robbins song off of his 1959 album,
Yeah.
you know, Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs. I said, how do you, she's like 3 or 4, right, like Reagan's age. She said, how do you know these songs? And she said, well, that's my dad listens to. You know?
Yeah, she was sitting there in her dad's lap, and she was, it was really impressive.
Very impressive.
Both in how she handled herself and the fact that she knew what she knew.
Right.
It was really cool. So tell us about your ranch in Aravaipa Canyon.
Well, it is a guest ranch. It's very different from this kind of guest ranch. I have one big ranch house that has got 22 beds in it. It's got 7 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. And so it's designed for families and groups that are willing to share one space. But the beauty of that ranch, and I just discovered that when I turned 50, I was looking for what I want to do with my rest of my life kind of thing. And someone suggested, would you be interested in, you know, maybe doing a guest ranch? I thought, man, that's it. Get me back on the land where I really love to be, and I could provide this service for people. And
Do you have enough horses for all your guests?
No, I don't. I'm not like here at White Stallion where I get everyone on a horse. Now, I have corrals and so on. If people want to bring their own horses and ride, I have my own horse, and I have 2 companion horses for that horse, but I do not put people on horses. I don't know how you guys do it. It's too much liability for me.
He'll keep your attention.
Yeah, but it's not designed for necessarily riding, even though it's a great place to ride because you have all these mountain trails. You can go forever. I'll never see it all in my lifetime. But it's mainly for people who just want to be away and out in nature. I intentionally keep Wi-Fi away from the main ranch house. So when people come there, they're experiencing nature, they're experiencing the creek.
How do people find you?
I have a website for that too. It's simply AravaipaCanyonRanch.com. AravaipaCanyonRanch.com, 3 words altogether, all lowercase. And I got to say that over the 20 years I've been doing this, it's just word of mouth primarily. I just looked the other day, people asked if there's some date in the fall they can book, and I don't have a weekend from September to Christmas open this fall. Spring is like that almost already filling up. So again, it's not an operation like this. It's a much smaller kind of thing, but it's very, you know, I love it. I love that people can come out there and have that experience. They seem to love their experience.
Obviously, returnees are most of your
yeah, I've had people now
guests.
have been coming for 20 years every year. A lot of times groups that want to do like I have one group that comes out of Animas Valley, Colorado, and they have their people that go out and do just little like vision quests on the land. So they'll go out and each one will find their spot in the land, spend 3 days fasting out there, come back and talk about their experience. So the land is kind of, you know, the most important feature of my ranch.
And you're kind of out alone, so that there's a lot of solitude there.
We have the only access to that whole side of the mountains of Aravaipa Ranch, so people can go for 17, 20 miles. I've never gone the whole distance myself, 17, 20 miles and never see another soul because we have the only access up there.
Do you, for people who don't know, Aravaipa Canyon is an interesting place where you are. You're pretty close to the, what's it run by, the BLM?
That's what it run. Well, at the end of the road, there's the BLM runs.
Where you get a permit to go in there.
Exactly. You go in there and you got to get a permit to hike back.
Yeah.
And they have an office there that is open most of the time?
Well, their office they do have an office there, but it kind of closed during COVID, and they encourage people to go online to the BLM website and get a permit to hike. And they only allow 20 people in there from our end of the canyon, only 20 people a day. So it's very limited. During this time of year, you have to get your permit the day that it comes available, and usually 2 days later the permits are gone.
And this is a steep walled canyon. You walk through the river,
unbelievable.
And what's the water flow like right now?
Well, at my place, I'm 10 miles in, off the main road. At my place, the water has never run dry in recorded history. My creek runs all year round, right by the main ranch house. So you can pull your mattress out on the deck and just listen to the water run all night long. But so in different places that further down the creek, it'll stop running during the underground. Yeah. Right, exactly. But up where I am, it's never gone underground, the whole time I've been there, or in recorded history, actually. So it's a beautiful location. I pinch myself that I get to be there. And my plan is to retire there. I just haven't quite got there yet. I go back and forth. I was just there this morning. I came in for this.
You had a little opening so you could go to your own place?
Well, actually, I have a fifth wheel up there.
That's right. I remember that now. So that's right. So whole health consulting. What's whole health? How do you define it in your approach?
Well, whole health to me is recognizing that you typically think of health, we focus on physical health and so on, but whole health to me is everything. It's our mental approach to life. It's our physical, our spiritual, our relationships. All that contributes to our health. So whole health means that we approach the person from all those aspects. And typically in our approach, which I think makes it unique, is we start by asking the person what it is they want to do to enhance their well-being. We focus on well-being, not just on what's wrong with you, but we like to ask the question, not what's the matter with you, but what really matters to you. What do you want to focus on in your health? And the doctor might say, well, you got a lot of other things you should focus on, but we start with what is it you want to focus on. The doctor may be saying, you got to quit your smoking if you want to be healthy, but maybe you'd rather focus on getting some relaxing time, or maybe you want to focus on your sleep, or maybe you want to focus on your relationships. So we let the person decide what they want to focus on and then support them in that endeavor.
How do you get your clients?
Well, it just depends on where we are. So, we introduced whole health to the VA, as you mentioned. So I did that for 7 years. So the VA it was veterans that we had programs on every VA around the country. So we would hire people at every location to provide these services.
Oh, you had more than one location?
Always, every location, in every place we had a VA, 140 some VA locations where we would introduce this whole health concept. And then we hired people and trained physicians, trained nurses within the VA system to deliver this kind of approach. And it really, again, started with recognizing the person as a whole person, but also recognizing that the person should have more say in what they wanted their health for. And that was the other thing, we had them identify, what do you want your health for? What's important to you in life? What really matters to you? Let's build a health plan around what really matters to you. So it started with, in this case, the veteran. And then more recently, Alice Walton, heir to the Walmart, started a whole health movement in Bentonville, Arkansas. So I was going back and forth until this last year doing that. They're actually designing a whole health medical school, which will train physicians right from the start in this approach. So there's a lot more to it, but that's the.
Are you still involved with that?
I still am. They still call me for consulting services. In fact, there's a group now that wants to start whole health retreats at my ranch, and they want me to include more individual spaces. Right now I have one big ranch house, so they came to me and said, David, if we come up with the money, would you be willing to put some smaller units where individuals can stay on your property? And I don't want to detract from my land. I don't want to make it too developed. But I'm willing to figure out some ways to maybe tuck back in some yurts or some tiny homes or some type.
Well, there's a lot of glamping options now to where you can put them up and they're pretty nice, and take them down and there's really not much of a trace. What was your degree? What you did?
Well, I actually got my degree in marriage and family therapy, which I never did. I had a PhD in marriage and family therapy.
I could follow that up. You never got married, or you never taught it?
I got married, but I came out here thinking I was going to work at the conciliation courts to do marriage and family therapy for people getting divorces, and it didn't work out. So I found a job, I thought it was going to be temporary, working at the University of Arizona, and actually doing the Navy's behavioral health prevention program. So for before I got into whole health, for 25 years I did the Navy's behavioral prevention program.
What does that mean?
And that means that what started out when the Navy got concerned about drug use and alcohol use, that we were the prevention arm. So
were there retirees?
No, this was for
active duty.
Active duty. So these young sailors, we'd sit in a circle and we'd again started out with the question, what really matters to you? How does your alcohol use fit into what really matters to you? So we let them, rather than preach to them about alcohol, which they got plenty of preaching, we just asked them to think about how they wanted to be healthy, how their alcohol use or their drug use fit into their long-term careers or didn't fit in. And so I did that. What was supposed to be, I thought I'd do it for 6 months. I did it for 25 years.
Wow.
Kind of designed your own program.
But what I think I loved about it is I got to travel to 36 different Navy bases around the world to train people to do our program. So I got to travel a lot to do that.
On the Navy payroll.
Yeah, I was a contractor for the Navy to do that.
So I want to ask you an odd question. So you were raised Mennonite.
Yes.
So do you see that you had to leave that behind, or is that a foundation for this work that you do? That, in my view, you're taking a different approach to overall health, but on the mental, emotional side.
Exactly. What's interesting, I've always valued, I grew up, like you said, I grew up in a Mennonite community, a very strong Mennonite family, but I always valued what I've got from that. Now, I don't practice, the Mennonite tradition, but one of the things that was interesting to me is that, so when I turned 18, Mennonites were known as being anti-war, as being, conscientious objectors. And so I didn't have to apply for my conscientious objector status. They just gave it to me.
No kidding.
They sent me the papers, knowing everyone in our community they knew was going to be, so I didn't even ask for it. But then I went off to college and I was during the Vietnam War and I drew a number of 345, so I didn't have to make that I ended up not being called to.
You had a good number.
I had a good number. But then it's interesting, for 25 years I served the Navy, and then for 8 more years I served the VA. So all my life has been serving military, but I don't find that a contradiction. I value what our military does. And I have a good friend that says the military is not to fight. The military is to keep us from having to fight as much as possible, to have a strong military. And so I had no trouble, reconciling my previous upbringing with working for the military, because these are people too. These are human beings and I certainly want them to have the best lives possible too. So.
Absolutely. So it was a foundation.
It was a foundation, a great foundation. I appreciated everything about a little strict for me now. I mean, there's no movies, no playing cards, and you don't date girls that do, and no drinking. No, that was the one thing. There was no alcohol in my family at all, and no smoking. So that's good health practices, but little too focused on behaviors and that. So I call myself spiritual. Now, I'm not very religious, but I call myself spiritual. You'll see that in some of the music that I've written and so on.
Well, we want to hear another song from that fancy guitar that you got sitting there in your lap.
Well, I talked to Stan. I hope we have enough time to do this. I talked to Stan, and he said, you ought to sing for them the song you wrote for your daughter's wedding last weekend.
Yes.
So I don't know exactly how this all fits in, but my daughter got married in Texas. She's a vet. I think I've shared that with you, and she just
veterinarian.
Veterinarian. Yeah, not
exactly. To a military vet.
Yeah. I'm sorry, a veterinarian. There in Texas. Very proud of her. And so she asked me if I would do last week. She asked me if I would do a little welcome at the reception and to maybe give a little talk. And I said, well, I'm not much at giving talks, but I'll say something. In that moment, I decided I'm going to write a song and surprise her. So that's what I did. When I stood up to welcome people, I had someone bring my guitar and said, so if I decided rather than give a little talk, I'll just sing a song that I wrote for you. So actually, I practiced it here right before I went, the Saturday night before I went. And I asked the group here, I said, so I haven't named the song right now. It's Ryan and Sophia's wedding song. What'd be a good name listen to the song and then tell me a good name. And one of the people here said, a good name for that song would be A Father's Prayer.
Wow.
So that actually came from here, Russ.
And it stuck.
That's where it stuck, and that's now,
perfect.
It's now called The Father's Prayer. So. What a blessed day, a dream come true. Good Lord is smiling down on you. And though this moment may be one of your best, may all your days be divinely blessed. Yet there will come times we wonder why things that we want keep passing us by. But align your dreams with God's plan for you, and that's when you will find your dreams coming true. Can't always see from our limited view what's the best trail we're to pursue. So we ride out in faith, trust in His love, realigning our dreams with those from above. May most of your days be sunny and blue, knowing full well the storms will come too. Maybe learn to be grateful for these dark days, trusting in His providential ways. Yeah, there will be times we wonder why things that we want keep passing us by. But align your dreams with God's plan for you, and that's when you will find your dreams coming true. Align your dreams with God's plan for you. Stand back and watch all your dreams come true.
That was great.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how it's a cowboy song necessarily, but
Well, we won't tell.
It was a cowboy wedding, though. That a cowboy.
Oh yeah.
Cowboy that, in fact, he couldn't make the rehearsal because he had some cattle that were sick. And so
it's a good excuse.
He was a
That's
cowboy.
the kind of son-in-law you want.
Well, yeah, that was not my son. That's the guy who did the officiating.
Oh, okay.
But all the guys had to wear boots and jeans. She had 11 on each side of that wedding party, and they all had to wear boots and jeans. And it was a Western wedding.
Perfect.
Anyhow, I got off on a tangent there, but thank you. It's been a pleasure to do this with you, and had no idea what I was going to say today, but.
That's how we handle it. We have no idea either. So, perfectly named song. Thanks for ending with that.
Oh,
we can't build much on that.
That was great. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Russell. Appreciate it.
Thank you, music lovers and others, for joining us today. And thank you to Stan Huston's production team for making this episode possible. Next week, New York Times reporter John Branch joins us to talk about his best-selling books, The Last Cowboys and Side Country. Be sure to join us for some great storytelling. Until then, I'm Lynn Weezy Sneed, reminding you to sit tall and ride safe.